remember that before. It's down to satisfaction.
So one of the challenges that is facing civil society in the current context, where things can go wrong very quickly, as we have seen in my own country, there is a challenge of needing to really democratize democracy, according to Giddens. That is, we need to deepen and strengthen our democracy. And it is in this line that civil society within the South African context has a clear role to play. There's an opportunity and there's a challenge at the same time. One of the biggest challenges that is facing us as civil society is how can we really foster a strong civic culture. Over the years, something has gone wrong with the civic culture, and it really needs to be fostered. It really needs to be strengthened again. And this is the responsibility of civil society. It's not the responsibility of government. It is not the responsibility of business. It is in civil society that democratic attitudes and principles can be fostered. And this is a role and this is a challenge that we need to take up in a much more courageous way. The interesting thing about the democracy in South Africa is that there are times when it is under threat, we tend to see it as a fragile flower. And when it withstands the challenges, then we see it as a sturdy tree. And more for us in civil society, we need to make sure that our democracy remains as a sturdy tree. Now, talking about economic growth, South Africa is viewed as an emerging economy. And there's no doubt that between the years of 1993 and 2008, the country has experienced steady growth. And that was wonderful, and it left us with a wonderful feeling. However, positive as the economic growth was, it is what flowed out of that growth. Through that growth, wealth was created and benefits were created. Unfortunately, it's only a very small portion of South Africans who had the benefit of that growth as well as the benefit of the wealth that was created. The biggest challenge that we faced as a country around economic growth was around distribution. Equitable distribution, no. So what do we sit with in spite of all that wonderful growth that was realized? We sit with a country where the gap between the wealthy and the poor is very high. The growing inequality is a matter of concern. And if ever there's a time that civil society needs to look for opportunities and for things to address in the country, it is around the growing inequality. Then, both the democracy as well as the economic growth really thrust South Africa onto the global stage. And with that, South Africa being thrust onto the global stage, we, similar to elsewhere in the world, there needed to be a realignment of its relationships. South Africa found itself new allies. South Africa found itself as an emerging economy. It finds itself playing the global stage. But quickly the country realized that when you are thrust onto the global stage, you have to start to play by the rules of others. So what do we see in the country? Because of the realignment of relationships, we see a country that is where we are beginning to see economics is being seen as the driving force. And this poses a challenge for us in civil society. There is no way economic solutions on their own can begin to address the problems that South Africa is facing. So with all the wonderful growth, the challenges remain. So what do we see? What are some of the challenges? Within the South African context, poverty is no longer the only priority. What is happening in Durban this week clearly shows us that climate change as well as environmental struggles are also priorities that need to be addressed. For us as civil society, I think the biggest challenge is going to be, how does a country such as South Africa balance in the way in which it addresses these priorities, because poverty is a reality as much as climate change and all the challenges around that are priorities. Then we also see in the field in South Africa new philanthropists on the scene, and that is posing a challenge to us as civil society. How do we even begin to engage with them when their agendas are so different from our agendas? I think there's going to be opportunity to really address some of these issues. So, what would I like to end with? When I think of the state of civil society in the South African context, and I look at where we are today, and I look at how we are questioning, and I look at the urgency around civil society, I have to say, maybe as civil society, we have erred on the side of playing by the rules of others and being shaped by the agendas of others. Maybe as civil society, we have erred on the side of not taking innovation, experimentation, and researching new policies as seriously as we could have. Maybe we have allowed ourselves to get stuck in old traditional organizational forms and practices that are not the location of the power and the free will of the people. Maybe we have entered into relationships with government and business that do not leave space both for collaboration and non-collaboration, criticism and commendation. Maybe we have allowed our hand to be weakened by having government as sponsor and funder of our sector. Maybe we have not held the spaces that are for critical civic engagement between government and communities with integrity. Maybe we have allowed ourselves to drift away from our unique purpose towards becoming delivery agents for the state and the market. So, if we are speaking new frontier, we have to see this as sites of dynamism. There's a new dynamism that needs to come in. We have to see it as sites of innovation. We are being challenged to become innovators as civil society. And we have to be open. We have to be open to change. We have to really look for opportunities and sources for renewal, both renewing ourselves and those that we engage with. And we have to look for all opportunities or avenues of opportunity that will help us and contribute to us making a meaningful change. Thank you.